Oscar #2. I know it doesn't matter to you. I know.
No, not that it doesn't matter at all, but you don't, you know, all you can see are the pitfalls into which you can fall as an actor, you know, and then you try and find an audience. That's the next hurdle.
Sure. Let's talk about a project that I think you were part of a group of people who were trying to realize for years and years, and for some reason, I guess it was not clicking until 2015 when we got to see you in the adaptation of Patricia Highsmith's 1952 novel, The Price of Salt, which was called Carol. And many people regard that film as one of their favorites of your work, and just it's a tremendous performance for people who need a reminder. This woman who has a forbidden love affair with a younger woman, in that case played by Rooney Mara. Why was it so hard to to bring it to the screen, and why was it important to you to stick with it through that struggle?
Yeah, well, those of us who were producing it, it was on again, off again, on again, off again, and I think it's in the landscape we are now, when different types of relationships between different types of people have entered the mainstream. It wasn't like that back in 2015. I mean, that is recent history, and I don't think, I just couldn't see why it was so difficult. It had Todd Haynes directing it, it was Rooney, it was me, and we were producing it with Liz Carlson and Stephen Woolley, and we thought, well, this is going to happen. And of course, the budget got lower and lower and lower and lower. But you know, and so we just thought, we'll just make it and we'll make it work. But even so, I don't think any of us could have realised the reception that it would have, or how lasting the impact would have been. Obviously, in the same way that the novel did, it was a positive ending to a same-sex relationship. Although I was doing an interview the other day about Tar, and the interviewer, male, said, "You seem to be forging a line in predatory lesbians." I said, "Excuse me?" And he said, "Lydia Tarr." He said, "Carol." And I went, "Have you seen the film? Have you read the book?" I didn't know what to say.
Yeah, that's a tough one,
you know, it's such a reductive way to look at that story and that beautiful, beautiful film.
The way it ends is kind of haunting, and I wonder, absolutely, yeah. Would you mind reminding folks just that final closing bit about the film and what you interpret it to mean? I think people really wonder about these characters. They felt very sort of invested in them.
Well, it's a lesson in ambiguity. I mean, Phyllis Nage, who wrote the screenplay, really beautiful screenplay. It has this open, which I don't want to spoil for those of you who haven't seen the film, who might see it, where Rooney's character, Therese, returns to try and find Carol, but they just see one another across a crowded room. And it has to be, we knew it had to be incredibly full of possibility. And I think there had been a scene after that which was more descriptive about what would happen next. But I think it meant that it meant that the road wasn't going to be easy, but it was open. There was but it was an acting lesson in ambiguity.
That's great. And second time with Todd Haynes, and I guess I should ask you because, I mean, here's a guy who has, from the ones you've made with him, Far From Heaven, we could go on and on about, he seems to, I don't want to say draw out of actresses because they're the ones that are at least equal partners in it, but like, what is it about the way he works with actresses where so often they do such great work for him?
He comes with these incredible mood boards and sort of almost like a soundtrack for your character, so you get into the mood of how he might shoot you. And so he's very generous with including you into that world. So he was interested in the photography of Soul Lighter, and my brain's gone, but there's a wonderful female photographer who was actually a babysitter, and I think there was a Vivian Meyer, I think is her name, yeah, and she would photograph. There were sort of strange self-portraits where she'd photograph herself in shop windows, and you'd catch part of her in a mirror or something. But and so you were really invited into the texture and how you were going to be looked at, which is useful because then you can absorb that and forget about it and just play the scenes. But he's a really wonderful. And he's also, in a way, it still feels as kind of fluid as a student film. You know, I'd seen years ago, I'd seen his student film when he was at NYU called Superstar, which was the Karen Carpenter story done with Barbie dolls.
Underground, right?
Unbelievable. Watching this Barbie doll with her mother yelling at her, vomiting into the toilet. It was heartbreaking. It was really, only he could have done that. It was really incredible.
Speaking of student film, like I think going back to wherever it was, NYU, I forget where, but he and Christine Vachon since then through now.
Yeah, he has long relationships.
Yeah. Also, the year of Carol was Truth, you and Robert Redford. He's Dan Rather, you're his producer. There was Cinderella, there was Knight of Cups, and then there was a movie that, or a project, I don't know how you describe this, that not many of us got to see unless you are, I guess, at certain museums or very select places, called Manifesto, which is a multi-screen film installation written, produced, and directed by Julian Roosevelt, shot in 12 days, in which you play 13 different characters, roles. Can you tell us a little bit about that? Because that's going to be one of the clips we see in a moment.
Oh, yeah. I actually went to Sundance in a linear form. But we did it as a multi-channel work. It showed at the Armory in New York, and I think it was here at LACMA as well. But it was so there were 13 different screens, and each character was saying as a monologue an artist manifesto. And of course, artist manifestos, you know, whether it's the the futurists or the Dadaists or the the surrealists or whoever, they assert their difference. In such a passionate way, and how they want to destroy the artistic movement that has come before them. But the fascinating thing is when you heard all of these done in concert, and then they hit this pitch tone, each of the characters would turn and start speaking on a pitch tone, and they'd all hit this pitch tone. All of these assertions of individuality all sounded exactly the same, which was a really fascinating thing to be in the middle of.
So let's take a look at Cate in Todd Haynes' Carol 2015 and Julian Roosevelt's Manifesto 2015.